It's now time for Energy Insights, where you get an inside view and local perspectives of all the oil and gas progress going on in the Mid-Ohio Valley. This program is being brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association and can be heard every Saturday at 9 a.m. on local radio WMOA AM 1490 and ESPN radio WJAW FM 100.9 and AM 630. It's now time for the show. Here's Johnny Wharf, your local host.
Energy Insights on a Saturday morning. We have had the great honor over the last several weeks to talk from the Oil and Gas Museum. You've met Mike and Paul and Catherine, and they're all with me now. Actually, some of them are taking off in different directions, but we're going to draw them back in one way or the other. Mike, I'm going to start with you because I think if folks think about some old movies, and there's always some guy playing an old piano in the corner, and lo and behold, if there isn't the oldest piano, certainly a formal piano that I've ever seen, and maybe just a little of the back history on that.
This one has a very interesting history. It was bought to go to one of the hotels in Burning Springs during the boom periods, and right before the fire, while it was en route on the barge, the hotel burned, so there was no use to take it there. So in the meantime, the barge operator sold it to a local family, the Kestersons, south of Parkersburg, and it was in their family for many years. And then one of the heirs there gave it to the museum, so it came here. It would be nice to take it to Burning Springs eventually sometime, and maybe in the future. But if you come to the museum, you'll see it's a very grand old piano.
Yeah, the Oil and Gas Museum, 3rd Street in Parkersburg, just to see the ornamental legs on it. Paul Hobitzel is the president of the Oil and Gas Museum. I walked through here, and these are some of the things I wrote down. You can take off on any one you want, but I wrote down hand-operated fire truck. Okay. I wrote down a Keystone gas pump, a massive oil and gas map back there that might be 20 feet by 20 feet, Burroughs cash register. Okay. Stop me when you want.
All right. Well, the fire engine is owned by Gary Trawl and is on loan to us. It was a Parkersburg fire engine, and it was made in Seneca, New York, and it was pulled by people, and people pumped it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a hand pumper, to call.
I think about like you see the guys on the old tracks, that pumping one side and the other.
That's right. That's what it is.
Exactly.
That's what it is. They stood on each side and pumped it. And anyway, when HUD came in and they tore down part of Parkersburg. Some of the old garages were in that area, and this pumper was in that. I saw it as a kid in those buildings, but Gary Trawl came by it somehow, and he loaned it to us to display. The oil map comes from Craker State. All the oil wells that they drilled or that they knew of were all placed on that map by hand in ink, and we have wells on that even the state doesn't have a record of.
Yeah, well, I know the Keystone Oil gas pump in there. I saw as a kid too. So
right. There you go.
I used to wash my window too when I walked in the room, but that's a different story, right? Somebody else pumped it. Yeah. And then Catherine, as far as we happen to be standing in a room that we hadn't been in earlier talking, but as we look around, we could say it'd be a Civil War room, and there are in glass cased display Civil War, the old wool Civil War uniforms when you look at them, and you can imagine just the weight of the buttons alone. But that's the way they rolled. So what's the backstory in there?
These were actually uniforms worn by an ancestor of David McCain, Leander Morton. And he was in the Civil War. These are authentic family uniforms that have been handed down through the family for years. And David actually put the Civil War room together when he was still around with us. And these were actually worn, it says on the sign, I don't know this without reading the sign, at actually defeating Jefferson Davis.
Wow.
So he was a very small man, that's for sure. I guess they were a lot smaller than folks are today, but the fact is, all of this was his. There are several other uniforms in here. I don't believe they're family related, but they're definitely interesting to see. And
belts, swords.
Swords. There's actual repeater. One of the first repeater rifles in here too.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So
Thank you very much.
Pretty interesting to see.
Thank you, Catherine Leggett, joining us as well. Paul Hobitzel and Mike Thomas, and we thank you guys once again for having us here on the show. Energy Insights on a Saturday morning, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association.
Thank you for listening to Energy Insights, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Tune in every Saturday at 9 a.m. on WMOA and ESPN Radio WJAW as Johnny Wolf brings you your local and inside perspectives of the oil and gas progress going on in the Mid-Ohio Valley.